The controversial and explosive case of Mahmud Khalil.
He's the one making sure that protesters get away with their violence. They're fighting for the eradication of Western civilization.
You've used your platform to spread debunked claims, like beheaded Israeli babies, even after being disproved.
It hasn't been disproved. I have seen the footage myself. I have been there and talked to the people. You seriously bring that up when Hamas is holding hostages right now as we speak? Tonight, we're diving into the controversial and explosive case of Mahmud Khalil, a Palestinian student and activist at Columbia University whose fiery protests have sparked a national debate with deeply divided opinions. He has been detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and has a team of lawyers. There are ongoing legal battles regarding the jurisdiction of his case, with a federal judge ruling that parts of the case should be heard in New Jersey. While some say he is a dangerous radical who needs to be deported, others call him a voice for the oppressed, fighting for justice. Is he a threat to national security, or is this a gross violation of his First Amendment rights? Tonight, we'll hear from both sides. First, Ileana, a Jewish student leader at Columbia who says she witnessed Khalil at protests. Ileana, thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate you being here. I know this is a very sensitive topic. How long have you been a student at Columbia?
This is my fourth and final year here.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about this. So you have witnessed Mahmud Khalil at these protests. What do you see him doing? What's his role?
Well, interestingly enough, he's kind of positioned himself in a way that he's spokesperson of the protest, but he also sometimes stands on the side. So while he takes responsibility for everything that comes out of the protesters' mouths, he doesn't actually participate in the protests always in terms of being a body there. He's more of like an overseer in charge of everyone rather than a participant.
And I've seen videos of him negotiating. And is he negotiating with campus officials? And who's he negotiating on behalf of when he's doing that? Do you know?
Absolutely. So he's the clear leader of CUAD, Columbia University Apartheid Divest, which negotiated with university leaders after they took over Hamilton Hall, which was a violent takeover of a private university building. They even took two custodial members hostage, which, if he's a voice of the oppressed, it's a bit ironic considering they took regular people hostage and actually hurt them in the process. That happened again at Millbank, which was another violent building takeover by CUAD, where they pushed a Barnard staff member aside. And he's speaking on behalf of those people who are doing those actions. So while he's kind of felt like he's been able to save himself by not doing the physical action itself, he's the one who's actually speaking for it and making sure that the protesters are able to get away with their violence.
Right. He was not actually there physically for the Hamilton takeover, right?
To be honest, I'm not sure, but I know he was outside while he was there, and he was the person that they chose, again, because he's the official representative of the group. It was his job to speak on behalf of the protesters who did the dirty work. So if anything, he's kind of grifting off of the people who are putting their bodies on the line for him, and he thought he'd be able to get away with it by just being the spokesperson. But being the spokesperson means you're the official representative of the takeover. And he also did organize the protest, which is crucial. It's like saying that we can't, we're not going to get the person who masterminded it in trouble, but all the foot soldiers are totally allowed to be put on the chopping block.
Right. And what is your understanding of CUAD? What is this organization and what are they demanding?
CUAD, they're trying to paint themselves as fighting for liberation, but they've clearly said that what they actually want is to destroy Western civilization. They're undoubtedly anti-Semitic. In the beginning, they began with some Palestinian liberation ideology, and Jewish students on campus are totally happy to have a conversation about Palestinian liberation. But that's not actually what they talk about. They're trying to destroy the university. They're trying to destroy liberal democracy. They're trying to overturn essentially every liberal institution in America. And they use Palestinian liberation as a front for their actual goals.
Okay, so you think they're being disingenuous, that it's not at all about what they say it's about, because CUAD stands for Columbia University Divest, Apartheid Divest. And what do you understand that to mean? What's the front organization supposedly talking about?
Well, that's the thing. Their words also have stated as such. Originally, they say they're Columbia University Apartheid Divest, which means just taking Columbia endowment money out of investments in Israel. But that's actually not what they are at all. They wrote a statement that said explicitly they're fighting for the eradication of Western civilization. That's a word for word quote. And they took back an apology where one of their other spokesmen who worked with Mahmud Khalil said that he wanted to kill Zionists and Jewish students were lucky that he wasn't going around killing us. The Columbia University Apartheid Divest retracted an apology about that, which is to say they do approve of killing Zionist students on campus. So they say in their own words that they want to eradicate Western civilization. It's not just me.
Okay, so people know what Zionist means. Let's put up a graphic of what the definition is of Zionist and be sure everybody understands. Zionist is a person who believes in the development and protection of a Jewish nation, now Israel, where Jews can live safely. Now, that's just a dictionary definition of a Zionist. So a person who believes in the development and protection of a Jewish nation. And the Jewish nation now is Israel, but you think that they imply in their ideology Western civilization in general, and certainly Jews beyond the borders of Israel.
Yeah, I mean, they don't imply it. They state it explicitly. I guess it's unfortunate that their super radical statements haven't made it further out into the media. But it's what students on campus, we read what they put out every single day. They're constantly putting out material by Sinwar, who was the head of Hamas. They hand out Nasrallah stickers, pictures of Nasrallah's face. He was the head of Hezbollah. They're supporting terror groups that themselves have said they want to eradicate Western civilization and that the U.S. is after Israel.
And they're making demands, and I've heard him on tape say, listen to us, to our demands. Is he a student at Columbia?
He was a student at Columbia. He finished his credits in December, but he is walking in May, if that makes any sense. It's a slight distinction.
So he's finished his coursework, but he actually walks the stage in May if he's still here. Now, Mahmud Khalil has referred to himself as a spokesman for Columbia University Apartheid Divestment. Here's a clip of him speaking to the press. Let's watch this together, Ileana, and we'll talk about it.
As of now, there are no assurances from the university that no NYPD or any other law enforcement, including the National Guard, will be brought into the university. Yes, so yesterday we had a very long session with the university negotiators. We spent 11 hours in the negotiation room. Today we spent about an hour as well. Clearly, there are, as Wade mentioned, we are at the stage where kind of an impasse. The university is not acknowledging the movement and the extent of the movement, and what they're willing to offer is mostly just the statements, processes, and committees. This is not a matter of simply violating university rules. This is a movement, an anti-war movement. We have sparked similar Gaza solidarity encampments across the nation and even across the globe. The group today unanimously took the decision to continue this encampment until Columbia divests.
Okay, so he's saying they're not leaving. They're going to stay there until Columbia divests. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's obviously crazy. It sets the precedent that any student who wants something from the university can now essentially trespass on Columbia property and just by sheer force get what they want and force Colombia into negotiations. The fact that Colombia is negotiating with people who are willingly breaking rules is pretty backwards for a school that claims to care about law, right? The Columbia Law School is one of the best in the country, but ironically, they don't care about keeping order on their own campus.
Yeah, don't care about the rule of law. Okay, I want you to stay with us and listen to some of the other conversations we're going to have, because I'm going to ask for your reactions to it. Nurdin Kaswani, the outspoken leader of Within Our Lifetime, a pro-Palestinian and anti-Zionist organization, has led high-profile protests across New York calling for the end of Israel while facing accusations of inciting violence and fueling unrest with her provocative tactics. Now, Nurdin, thanks so much for joining us. I think it's important for people to have a conversation about this instead of just reacting to headlines. So I appreciate your willingness to have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here just to correct the record on all of these misconceptions that are being spread about the Palestinian cause, things that you've spread as well. So I'm glad to have an opportunity to debunk that.
I deal in facts and venture to say Nurdin will not debunk anything that I have had to say, beginning with my position that Hamas is a cold-blooded terrorist group that has murdered innocent women, infants, and elderly, and then run like cowards to hide among civilians and in tunnels in and around hospitals and schools, knowing Israel will, of course, retaliate, as would any rational individual or nation in response to such a murderous attack. I'm sure it will be spun as resistance, but any critical thinker will see through it for what it is. When my sleep was off, it felt like I couldn't show up as my best self. That's why I'm so excited to share something that makes a real difference: Beam's Dream Powder. Beam is proudly founded in America and run by people who share our values: hard work and integrity, and delivering results. It's a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend packed with ingredients shown to improve sleep, so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. Beam has already improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep, helping people across the country wake up and feel their best. Here's the deal. Beam is giving my listeners the ultimate Patriot discount of 40% off. Try their best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time. Go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off. Support an American company, invest in yourself, and start getting your best sleep tonight. Life is full of surprises, and emergencies often strike when we least expect them. But preparation is key, and that's where Jace Case comes in. With Jace Case, you'll have essential emergency prescription medications right at your fingertips, ready when you need them most. Whether it's an unexpected illness or a travel mishap, having the right meds on hand can turn a potential crisis into just a minor inconvenience. Don't let the unexpected catch you off guard. Jace Case gives you peace of mind so you can tackle life surprises with confidence. Be ready. Take charge today. Head over to jace.com. That's JASE.com. And when you check out, use the code PHIL, spelled PHIL, to get a discount on your order and to have the right meds on hand the moment you need them. We are back with Nurdin Kaswani. So let's start right there. What is it that you feel like needs to be debunked?
Well, first of all, I think the definition of Zionism that you used is not accurate to the Palestinian experience. To us, and really through the study of settler colonialism, we understand that Zionism is a settler colonial ideology that justifies the genocide and occupation of Palestine. It's not about Jewish safety. It's about land theft, apartheid, US-backed militarism, Palestinians are labeled terrorists for resisting occupation, while Zionists burn villages, kill tens of thousands of children, and get U.S. funding to do so. This claim that Zionism is about self-determination is false, because it only exists through forced displacement, military occupation, and genocide. It's a system of oppression, just like apartheid South Africa and like all settler colonial projects. So when I call for an end to the establishment of the state of Israel, this is an anti-colonial position rather than a call for harm. Ending Israel as a political structure does not mean harm to Jewish people. It means dismantling an oppressive system, just as apartheid South Africa was dismantled. Peace comes when colonized people have justice and self-determination. And if Israel, just like any other country's existence,
was October 7th part of that?
Sorry?
Was October 7th part of the dismantling of the structure?
That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm saying that Palestinians have a right to fight against the colonial apparatus that is killing us. Now,
was October 7th part of that fight? I'm not here to speak to that. Well, sorry? I'm asking you the question. Was October 7th part of that? What is your position on October 7th?
I'm not here to comment on a military strategy of any armed group in Palestine. That's not, my place and what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that no matter how Palestinians resist, it's going to be labeled terrorism. We don't have a state. The U.S. continuously blocks that. Israel continues to swallow up our land. So, any way that Palestinians resist, they're labeled terrorists.
Well, was October 7th resistance?
Was the Nakba, was the genocide of Palestinians, do you explain that as Zionism?
Well, answer my question. You can't answer my question with a question. Do you believe that October 7th was resistance, or do you believe it was an attack?
I've answered your question, but you just want to keep, you want to have a narrow definition of how it's responded, because you've used your platform to spread debunked claims like beheaded Israeli babies, infants burned alive in their cribs, lies that were weaponized to justify the destruction of Gaza. These falsehoods remain on your website, even after being disproved. But when there's actual
Nardine, it hasn't been disproved. I have seen the footage myself. I have been in the kibbutz. I have been there and talked to the people, and I have seen
Biden saying
I have actually seen the videos of the Hamas invaders on their own body cams. I have seen that. This isn't hearsay. It's absolute
fact. Why did the White
House
walk back the claims that Biden made about seeing those same images?
I'm sorry?
Why did the White House walk back the claims about Biden seeing those same images months and months ago? Have you seen the footage of tens of thousands of Palestinian children decimated, evaporated, charred? Why aren't you speaking about those?
I absolutely have seen footage of Palestinian children losing their lives. And I'll ask you the question.
They were killed. They didn't mysteriously lose their lives. They were killed by Israeli missiles funded by the United States.
Absolutely. There were Palestinian lives that were lost when Israel reacted to the attack on October 7th. And those missiles were sent because Hamas attacked on October 7th and then went and hid cowardly among the civilians in Palestine. I hate that Palestinian lives have been lost. I hate that children in Palestine have been killed by missiles that have been sent to come after the terrorists that have attacked Israel. There's no question about that. That is terrible. I hate that that has happened.
You could take your same argument and flip it, on its head in the reverse. The establishment of the state of Israel happened through the genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, something that my grandparents personally faced. And so, you could say that anything that happened thereafter was also a reaction to that. I mean, if you're going to justify it, in one way, then we can, use that same argument to justify, anything on the Palestinian side that you're against as well. So, I think it's important for us to go back to the root cause of the issue, because I do believe that Palestinian Muslims, Christians, Jews, all different faiths, different backgrounds can live together in peace as they did prior to the establishment of the state of Israel. And I think any state that needs to commit genocide in order to exist, that needs to occupy people, that needs to imprison 10,000 Palestinians, that needs to use rape as a weapon of war, which, has been used against Palestinians for decades with silence from Western media, simply doesn't deserve to exist, especially when it needs constant U.S. funding.
Are you saying that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza? Is that what you're saying? The IRS is the largest collection agency, with April 15th fast approaching. It's more aggressive than ever. If you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting's not an option. The smart move is to get ahead of this. Listen, never contact the IRS alone. Let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS. Now, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dr. Phil. That's tnusa.com/Dr. Phil. April 15th is just around the corner. Act now. Let's cut to the chase. Your savings could be in serious trouble. When Elon Musk is out here warning us to brace for temporary hardship, you might want to listen. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. Are you going to sit back and hope for the best, or take control of your financial future? Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505. That's DRPHIL to 50505 today. Are you saying that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that. And according to the
Seriously?
Raphael Lemkin Institute for Genocide, Raphael Lemkin is the person who coined the term genocide, was also Jewish, that yes, it falls under the definition of genocide.
Well, let me tell you, if they're committing genocide in Gaza, then why are they warning people in Gaza that they are getting ready to do an attack in an area so they have an opportunity to clear the area before they drop missiles in that area? Why are they warning them? They're not committing genocide there. Their stated, demonstrated intent to defeat Hamas, not to eradicate Palestinians. They provide food, they provide water, they provide aid, they allow for evacuations, they warn civilians before airstrikes so they can minimize harm. And
they don't allow for evacuations.
They absolutely allow. They warn them ahead of time, and Hamas keeps them from leaving.
Gaza is the most densely populated region in the entire world, if not, or one of the most densely populated regions. So this is just false that they, have this opportunity to leave.
Does Hamas embed themselves within civilian areas? Does Hamas embed themselves in civilian areas using human shields?
I'm not a spokesperson for any organization, so I'm not sure why you're asking me, about Hamas. But if you're going to use the human shields argument, then you can say Israel used human shields by having people live on a border of a place that they are that they have been blockaded, that they have put under siege for 2 decades. So when you say they give them water or allow them water, they're the ones restricting water. They're the ones who made Palestinians live in a non-contiguous Swiss cheese-like structure where Palestinians in Jerusalem, the West Bank, Palestinian citizens of what is now called Israel cannot see each other. So,
if you don't want to discuss strategy, then let's just talk about results. You say that Israel is powerful, they have weapons, they're backed by the United States, and they're committing genocide in Gaza. Between 1990 and 2022, the population of Palestine has increased from 1.9 million to 5 million. That's a growth of 155% in 32 years. Does that sound like genocide?
Why don't you put up the definition of genocide, Dr. Phil?
Does that sound like genocide?
Put up the definition of genocide, because it's not just about completely killing every single person in Palestine to be calling it a genocide. It's the intent to kill people. It's the intent to destroy a nation or group by destroying their political institutions, their social institutions, their way of life. And this is what Israel's been doing to us. So I'm not even, I would go as far to say that it hasn't just been a genocide for the last 18 months. Palestinian people have been facing a genocide since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948.
This land belonged to the Jewish people long before 1948. But I'm glad that you brought that up, because in 1948, if we're talking about the rule of law, you're quite right. Because in 1948, there was an establishment and it was accepted by Israel, but it was rejected by Palestine. They have had numerous opportunities to have a two-state solution since at least the 1940s.
Why would Palestinians accept giving 51% of our land to 6% of the population that was newly immigrated at the time? Why would anyone accept settler colonialism? We fought against British colonialism. We fought even against the Ottoman Empire. Why would anybody accept willingly to be colonized?
So what do you want to happen? What do you want to happen? The Palestinians have rejected a two-state solution on 13 different occasions beginning in 1937 with the Peel Commission, the UN Partition Plan. I can go on up through and including 2020. So what do you want to happen?
I believe that one democratic state where people of all different religions can live together in peace, as they did prior to the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, where you are not granted supremacy based on your religion. And I believe that the indigenous people of Palestine, should be repatriated, should be given the right of return as stipulated in UN Resolution 194, which none of these solutions that you just posited, in these two-state solutions allows that, as an option. I believe that there must be reparations for the Palestinian people who've lost their land, who've been languishing in refugee camps and neighboring Arab countries for decades, for over 75 years at this point. And those who wish to live peacefully among their neighbors, who wish to be part of the Palestinian nation building project, can continue to do so. We even have Jewish people in my group within our lifetime. So,
how many Jews live in Gaza now?
Well, if you're going to bring that up, Israel is actually the one who decided to withdraw their population. So,
yeah.
And under this context of siege, blockade, and genocide, this is just a silly argument to bring up to begin with. You cannot have peace without justice.
Okay, and Jews have lived in the land for over 3,000 years despite conquest and exiles. Modern Israel is legally recognized. It's the San Marino Conference, the UN international treaties. They've never abandoned their claim to the land, ever. And there's no independent Palestinian state ever existed before Israel. There was never a Palestinian state ever before Israel, ever.
Okay, well, Ireland and Italy also didn't exist up until like the 20th century. The concept of nation states is fairly new. Palestinian people existed. And yes, the people in that region, there were Jewish people, Christian people. Palestine is a land of, the Abrahamic religions. A lot of those just Jewish people actually converted to Islam. If you look at the genealogy of a lot of Palestinians.
Are you saying that Israel is an apartheid state?
Because genetic testing is actually illegal in Israel.
Are you saying that Israel is an apartheid state?
Israel's beyond an apartheid state. It's
Really?
a settler colonial genocidal state.
Really? Then why are there
Yeah.
equal rights for Arab citizens in Israel?
There aren't equal rights. There's over 51 discriminatory laws against Palestinian citizens of Israel, and you're excluding millions of Palestinians by even just focusing on them. You're also excluding Palestinians in exile, like myself, and Palestinians who are in refugee camps scattered across the world in exile, unable to exercise their right of return.
If it's an apartheid state, how are 1.8 million Arab citizens living in Israel? It's 20% of the population. They have full rights. They vote, they work, they run for office, they own property. They have more rights and freedom in Israel than in any Muslim country on the face of the earth. How is that apartheid?
That's simply not true. And like I already stated, there's 51 discriminatory laws against them.
They have their own
more.
political parties.
Israel defines itself as a Jewish state, meaning that there is Jewish supremacy. Regardless of all these things that you've mentioned, do you deny that there are 51 discriminatory laws against Palestinian citizens of Israel? Because that's simply a fact. And again, you're ignoring millions of other Palestinians that I've mentioned.
There are Arab lawmakers that regularly criticize Israel in parliament without fear of arrest. There are Arabs in Israel's society. There are Arab doctors, professors, business leaders that thrive. Israeli hospitals treat Jewish and Arab patients equally, including Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank.
You know, there's Arab Jewish people as well. So when you say Arab,
Yes.
do you mean Palestinians or do you mean Arab Jews who are considered Israelis, you know, the same as European Jews?
There are Arab Palestinians that are there. There are Palestinians versus Israeli Arabs. The Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza are not Israeli citizens. They have their own governments, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. And there are Arab judges that have put Israeli citizens in prison. How can that be apartheid if you have Arab judges that put Israeli citizens in prison?
Well, if you're going to bring up prisoners, right now there's over 10,000 Palestinians locked up in Israeli occupation prisons, including journalists, activists, students, mothers, children. Many have never been charged with a crime. They're held indefinitely in torture chambers under what's called administrative detention, which means they can be imprisoned without charge or trial for months. They break them, they deny them medical care, they disappear them. And, you know, just recently on March 13th, the UN Human Rights Council released a report detailing Israel's systematic use of rape and sexual violence since October 7, which, you know, even predates that.
You seriously bring that up when Hamas is holding hostages right now as we speak?
Why wouldn't I bring that up? Yeah, there are mass rapes against Palestinians. It should be headline news. Instead, it's been met with complete media silence. The same media that ran with completely fabricated stories that the UN has said have not been substantiated about rapes on October 7 is now ignoring actual evidence of Israeli soldiers using sexual violence as a weapon of war. So why shouldn't I bring that up? Why aren't you outraged? Why is the media silent when Palestinians are the victims? Because these atrocity campaigns were never about the truth. They were about manufacturing consent for genocide. And if, you know, Israel really cared about their hostages, then they would have moved forward with the hostage deal that Palestinians have agreed to, that they have been trying to get done since for the last 18 months. But instead, they continue to bomb them because they don't care about their hostages. They have the Hannibal Directive that, you know, essentially allows them and promotes them killing their own people to, you know, achieve a political goal.
You can't possibly believe everything that you're now saying. You can't possibly believe what you're saying. You know that hostages are being held. You know that hostages are being tortured. And you know that the Hamas imperative is to kill every Jew in Israel and in Western civilization. Do you deny that?
Again, I'm not sure why you're asking me questions about Hamas when I'm not a spokesperson. I'm not speaking on behalf of Hamas. I'm speaking broadly on the aspirations, the beliefs of the Palestinian people. So yes, I do believe in everything I say, and I believe that most Palestinians, you know, actually do agree with it. And I'm not sure why you're just skirting over any evidence that I'm bringing towards you, that I'm bringing forward about the sexual violence, the atrocities that Palestinians face that you have still yet to comment on that you have still yet to condemn?
Will you condemn Hamas?
I'm not sure why you bring up, everything back to Hamas as if things started with Hamas or started with October 7th. Israel attacked my people. Israel tortured my family members. Israel forced my family off of their land decades and decades before Hamas ever existed. I'm not here to condone or condemn or speak on behalf of any political party in Palestine. I didn't get the opportunity to grow up or live in Palestine. I lived my whole life in the United States because my family, my people are in exile. So, that's not what I'm here to speak about.
Nardine Kaswani just said she isn't here to condone or condemn or speak on behalf of any political party in Palestine. But let's hear what she has to say when she doesn't have someone holding her accountable for her words.
Donald Trump, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide! We charge you with genocide! Donald Trump, you will see! Donald Trump, you will see! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! I want to make it clear to each and every one of you that today you stand on the right side of history. The largest transfer of weapons sent from the United States to Israel. Happened under the watch of Henry Kissinger. And he just died.
Do you think this is a religious war, or do you think this is about land?
This is, I don't believe it's a religious war. I believe it's about land, it's politics, but Israel does try to make it religious by repeatedly using the phrase the Jewish state, by branding, literally branding the Star of David on Palestinian prisoners, constantly attaching Judaism with Zionism to kind of foment actually anti-Semitism around the world as a justification for why they should exist in the first place. And, to create a sense of panic for Jewish people so that they can colonize Palestine.
So you will not condemn October 7th. You will not say October 7th was an atrocity, that it was an absolute abomination.
I've been asked this on other shows before, and just seeing so many claims made about that day that were debunked, that were shown to be lies. I can't condemn what I don't know to be true. And I generally don't condemn people living under occupation, living under oppression, genocide, settler colonization, and how they fight back against that. So, you're not sitting here and condemning Israel that has killed far more Palestinians, that has committed hundreds, maybe thousands of October 7th across its entire history. So I think it's a very loaded and unfair position to put Palestinians in, that is meant to skew the conversation, that is meant to make it seem like this all started on October 7th, when this started, like you said, even before 1948, with the pogroms that were established against Palestinians, 531 villages that were depopulated, that were razed to the ground, where Palestinian men were forced to dig their own graves before they were shot into them and watch their wives getting raped in front of them.
Okay, so you don't want to start this on October 7th. Major Hamas rocket attacks, if you go back however far, pick a place. 2006, Hamas captures an Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit, and launches rockets. 2008 and 9, 8,000 rockets fired from Gaza. 2012, 1,500 rockets. 2014, 4,500 plus rockets. 2021, 4,000 rockets in 11 days. 2023, October 7th, Hamas attack and massacres 1,200 people, 250 hostages, 5,000 rockets fired in a single day. So no, it didn't just start October 7th. It started a long time before there, and we can go back long before there, where Israel has been fighting for their very existence across hundreds and hundreds of years. So yeah, it started way before October 7th. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean, we can go back to 1994. We're in the month of Ramadan right now. And during that time, it was also the month of Ramadan when Brooklyn-born Baruch Goldstein, went to the Hebron Mosque and killed 32 Muslims, shot many more while they were praying, while their heads were down in prayer. And how did Israel react? By restricting movement and access to Palestinians living in Hebron. And not Israelis. And now his graveyard is literally a pilgrimage site for the current politicians and leaders, of Israel. So, you can bring up all these, rocket numbers when no matter how you look at the casualties, Palestinians have always faced greater casualties when there have been equivalent of multiple nuclear bombs essentially dropped on Palestine that, Palestinian rockets or resistance, don't even compare to. You sensationalize.
You say nuclear
numbers.
bombs have been dropped on Palestine?
I said the equivalent of nuclear bombs. The amount of bombs that they've dropped have added up to multiple nuclear bombs.
I see.
And you can see the complete destruction of Gaza. With that, I mean, you can hear Donald Trump talking about wanting to raise the place to the ground and build his casinos. You haven't seen, Israelis eviscerated the way that Palestinians have. And even if you want to talk about October 7th and some of the most horrific scenes that came out of that, it actually came out an admission from the Israeli defense minister at the time, Yoav Gallant, who recently said that the Hannibal Directive was applied. And we know that Hellfire missiles from Israeli Apache helicopters were fired on their own people. There are no weapons that Palestinians have that can wreak the same level of destruction that Israel has had on not only Palestine, but, even its own people.
Have you said that Palestine will only get justice and the world will only have peace when Israel ceased to exist?
Yeah, I've said that before. I mean, I said that in the beginning of this interview. Again, it doesn't mean harm to anybody. It means dismantling an oppressive system, just like apartheid South Africa was dismantled, just like the mandates, the colonization of many Arab countries by the Europeans, by the British, by the French was dismantled. This is how I see it. And I believe that the only path to peace for everybody is through justice.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to find somebody that you do trust if you're asking for the elimination of the Jewish state. And I think that's going to be a tough sell. And do you think the hostages should be released?
Yeah, I believe all hostages should be released on both sides. I believe that the thousands of Palestinian prisoners, including the children, should be released. And I believe that, Palestinians have been saying this broadly from the beginning.
Clearly, war is both complex and tragic to combatants and civilians caught in the crossfire, suffering collateral damage. I hate to see death and destruction on either side. I further maintain there is no moral equivalent to the atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7th. Hamas could predict with 100% accuracy that they were putting Palestinian civilians tragically in harm's way by their heinous actions and cowardly retreat to hide among civilians. Questions of proportionality of Israeli response, while relevant, can become moot by Hamas turning over all remaining hostages and surrendering. They are a terrorist group, not a government, and have hijacked the Palestinian population. Otherwise, Israel will continue to pursue them using their military power and including legitimate tools of war, such as blockades, regulated under international humanitarian law, such as Article 23, Fourth Geneva Convention. We're out of time, but we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. Should former Palestinian student Mahmud Khalil be deported?
You cannot deport an immigrant simply because you dislike his speech.
These are not spontaneous, student-led, peaceful protests.
A massive federal lawsuit named the group that Khalil was a spokesperson for as straight-up collaborators with Hamas.
This person is a threat to national security.
Mahmoud Khalil has not been charged with any crime whatsoever.
Don't let people divert you, Dr. Phil, from the facts of this case.
Tomorrow on Dr. Phil Primetime, I remain committed to hearing from all sides of important controversies. Thanks to you and my guest tonight.